The Lord of the Rings is one of the most beloved fictional series of all times, and after multiple recommendations for me to make a tier list on it, I decided it was time to impart my Weeaboo knowledge onto the world of Middle-earth. The series may have come out a while ago, but a Weeaboo is never late, nor early. He makes videos precisely when he means to. In this list, I will be ranking all of the characters from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings in terms of how strong I think they are in battle. This list is going to be based off of the film universe rather than the books, which is important to note as there are some differences, and will include everything from the extended editions of all three Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies. The first tier is the meme tier, for characters who aren't fit for battle. The Goblin Messenger looks like he can't even walk on his own, and I thought he was funny, so I just wanted him on the list. Alfred is the biggest coward of the entire series, going as far as to stuff his chest with gold to pretend he was a woman to try and get out of battle. His body's good at suffocating trolls, but only at the cost of his own life. Grima was a backstabbing snake, who was bitch-slapped by an old man. He wasn't quite as pathetic as Alfred, and at least had the balls to stab Saruman while his back was turned. The Fodder Tier, as its name suggests, is filled with fodder characters who are basically plowed through by most of the stronger ones. Goblins are basically the fodder of the fodder. Even when being numbered in the hundreds, get taken out by the main cast of The Hobbit. Gollum was able to bash one's brains in with a rock, so I put him one spot higher. Frodo was able to overpower Gollum, but besides that he never actually defeated anyone or anything else, so this is as high as I can put him. Bard's son Bane managed to kill 2 orcs, but one was in a surprise attack, and the other got his axe stuck on a tree. Orcs are basically the main fodder of both trilogies, being about the same level as an armed man. The wargs they ride are right above them due to their large size and strength.
But no one counts as mine!
Gimli was able to easily break an orc's neck when he was stuck, but looked like he was about to poo himself when a warg showed up. The spiders from The Hobbit seem to be about the same level as wargs, but they can climb objects and produce webs, so I put them higher. The biggest and strongest spider is Shelob, who also has a poisonous stinger at the end of her butt. She was able to prey upon orcs or anything else unlucky enough to wander into her lair. She was beaten back by Sam with Sting, which is why I put her below the Hobbits. Merry and Pippin have shown to be able to defeat plenty of fodder characters and are courageous enough to jump on the back of a troll. I would put Merry above Pippin as he seemed to be the smarter and more competent of the two. Sam's right above them as he defeated Shelob and plowed right through 3 orcs with all their focus on him. At the top of the fodder is Bilbo Baggins the Barrel Rider. He has killed multiple orcs, wargs, and spiders, and if he decides to put the One Ring on, nobody in this tier really has a chance against him due to his invisibility. Even without the ring, he's shown to be extremely nimble, and he also has the mithril chainmail he was gifted. However, he isn't really a warrior, and without the ring, I would argue Sam, Merry, and Pippin could all probably outfight him. The warrior tier is full of characters that can bash right through the fodder. At the bottom is the Goblin King. He's big and strong, and he was even able to force Gandalf back, but he was quickly killed when Gandalf went on the offensive. Ogres could easily kill a man with a single swing of their club, but could still be killed by a single well-placed arrow or sword stab. King Theoden was a pretty skilled fighter, killing multiple orcs and wargs in battle. His niece Eowyn seemed even more impressive than him, taking down a giant Mumakil and chopping off the head of the fell beast that killed her uncle. She also beat the orc general who looks like Sloth from the Goonies.
Hey, you guys!
While she actually has some really impressive feats, she isn't as seasoned of a warrior as the characters above her. Faramir is a good example of a top-tier soldier who should still be above her. Éomer is another example, and Haldir of the Elves is another. The main dwarf cast of The Hobbit besides Thorin are next, with them all being extremely skilled and seasoned soldiers, with amazing reflexes and teamwork. Bard is just as good as them with a sword, and an expert bowman. He was able to create an improvised bow by slamming pieces of wood into other pieces of wood, and used his sun to keep his black arrow steady so he could slay Smaug. I almost put Bard above Boromir since arrows seem to be his weakness, but one does not simply meme on Boromir. He was able to take out large groups of Uruk-hai, which are more dangerous than the standard orcs Bard and the dwarves fought. He's also skilled at throwing knives and kept on fighting and killing the Uruks even after being shot by multiple arrows, so I would definitely give him the edge over Bard unless they are extremely far apart. Nobody could take out fodder like Bomber in a barrel though. The Ring Wraiths, aka the Nazgul, are a bit tricky to place. They're unquestionably a tier above the Hobbits, and they should be a tier below Aragorn and Elrond since they could fight off multiple at once, so that would land them in the warrior tier. They're also impossible to kill though, so I put them near the top. Arwen never really fights, but the one thing she does do is a water spell that washes away the Nazgul chasing her. Considering she's an elf, who seem to usually be superhuman, and the daughter of Elrond no less, I think this placement's pretty fair. The elite tier is for the characters who are basically at the top of the verse for their respective races. Dane was a dwarf king who could smash through large groups of orcs with his hammer or his head. Thranduil was an elf king and father of Legolas, and like his son, is very skilled in combat. Either of these two kings could be interchangeable, but Thranduil is older and elves impressed me more overall than dwarves, so I put him above Dane. Either of them could be higher than where I put them, but due to their limited feats, this is where they ended up. Tariel's an extremely skilled elf and captain of the Elven Guard of the Woodland Realm. She's a master with a bow and arrow, even being able to shoot other arrows out of the air mid-flight. She dealt with the spider and orc fodder much easier than the dwarves did, and did better against Bolg than Killy. Lurtz is the Uruk-hai commander of the first Lord of the Rings movie, and the first thing he did when he was born was choke an orc to death. He's the one who killed Boromir, and he was able to give Aragorn a decent fight. Bolg is bigger and managed to beat both Killy and Tariel, as well as give Legolas a pretty good fight, so I put him higher. His father Azog was the orc leader at the time and was able to send multiple dwarves flying with the swing of his weapon, as well as toss another orc a pretty good distance with one arm. Thorin is right above him, as he was able to cut off his arm in their first fight, get the better of him once in the Battle of the Five Armies, and then in their final confrontation, they killed each other, but Thorin lasted longer, so overall he edges Azog out. Gimli versus Thorin would probably be an extremely close fight, but I'm giving it to Gimli as he was actually able to score more kills than Legolas in the Battle of Helm's Deep, and Legolas was easily scoring more kills than Thorin throughout the Hobbit movies. Elrond was a member of the White Council and fought alongside Saruman against the Nine Ringwraiths at Dol Guldur. That feat alone is enough for me to believe that he would defeat anyone below him. However, Aragorn was able to fight off 5 Nazgul by himself, which is a bit more impressive. He also beat Lurtz pretty quickly, though he definitely did have some trouble. I just don't see anyone in this tier outdueling him besides maybe Elrond. The beast tier is full of, well, beasts, both literally and metaphorically. First on this tier are trolls. Trolls come in a few different variations with varying sizes, but they would all pretty much land somewhere on this tier. The 3 stone trolls in The Hobbit were able to take on all of the dwarves at once without getting killed by them, and the sun was needed to finally put them down. The cave troll in the first Lord of the Rings got the better of Aragorn, and a group effort was needed to take it down. Another troll got the better of Aragorn during the final battle at the Gates of Mordor, which consistently puts Aragorn below trolls. Even Gandalf was about to lose to a troll when his staff wasn't working. Fell beasts are able to decimate enemy forces by swooping down on them and ripping them right off the ground. The Great Eagles are able to do similar air raids to enemy forces, and were able to fight off the fell beasts, so I put them higher. Bjorn was a skin changer able to transform into a massive bear. Azog feared going after the dwarves while he was around, and even Gandalf was nervous around him. All of the dwarves had to run for their lives from him, and he was able to take out a large amount of orc forces in the Battle of the Five Armies. The eagles and fell beasts might have aerial superiority and can take out large numbers of forces at a quicker pace, but I think if they got in close, Bjorn would be able to rip them apart. When on the ground, it's shown that even someone like Eowyn can chop off the head of a fell beast in a few strokes, so I can only imagine what Bjorn can do to them. The Watcher in the Water is a massive water creature with long tentacles that was able to force the entire Fellowship, including Gandalf, to retreat into the Mines of Moria. I think it has the size and strength to drag anyone below it to their watery grave. Treebeard, along with all of the other Ents, are able to literally stomp orcs and toss giant stones hundreds of feet. With that kind of strength, they should be able to beat the Watcher in the Water, either by ripping its tentacles off or by throwing large boulders at it from a safe distance. Mumakil, aka Olifants, are basically just giant elephants, but their size alone gives them this spot. They're able to bash aside armies with their tusks and take large amounts of arrow fire without going down. However, there is one man, or should I say, elf, who could take them down. The man, the myth, the legend, Legolas is at the top of the tier. Peter Jackson made him one of the most overpowered characters in the entire series, easily having the highest kill count of anybody. He has superhuman strength, speed, agility, and reactions.
That still only counts as one!
Defeating Bolg on 2 different occasions, one of which Bolg had help from other orcs. In a pure sword fight, he's probably around Aragorn or Elrond's level, possibly lower, but where he really shines is his bow and arrow. It gives him a massive range advantage against most characters, and he's easily the best shot in the series. He was the one who killed the cave troll with a well-placed arrow shot, and he killed another even larger troll in the Battle of the Five Armies. His superhuman agility and precision gives him the tools others don't have to take on these giant beasts like trolls and Mumakil by themselves. Coming in at the bottom of the wizard tier is the usually high Radagast the Brown. He doesn't really show off his powers too much, but as one of the 5 wizards in Amaya, he should be extremely powerful. and he did manage to fight off and disarm the Witch King of Angmar. The Balrog was stated to be beyond any of the Fellowship by Gandalf, which would include Legolas, and it was clearly a level above the troll they fought, so it belongs in this tier. It has both a fire sword and a fire whip, which can be used to slaughter its enemies. Gandalf the Grey was able to defeat it in one-on-one combat after a long fight and died right afterwards, so he would go just barely above it. While he doesn't use his magical power offensively very often, he can blast back large amounts of enemies with large shockwaves, telekinetically knock people around, and he seems to like to break rocks a lot. Defensively, he can create force fields that can block the Balrog strikes and temporarily hold back Sauron. Saruman was the most powerful of the 5 wizards and defeated Gandalf in single combat. He was able to create avalanches from miles away with his magical chants and shoot fireballs from his staff. However, after he came back as Gandalf the White, Gandalf was able to tank Saruman's fireball and destroy his staff. He was also able to push his influence out of King Theoden. That clearly puts Gandalf the White above Saruman, and he was also able to easily defeat Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli when they mistakenly attacked him thinking he was Saruman. The Witch King of Angmar at the height of his power was able to destroy Gandalf the White's staff, which is why I have him higher. He's the strongest of the Nazgul, but in the past we know he's been fought off by Aragorn, Radagast, Elrond, and Saruman, so during those points in time he should definitely be lower and much closer to the spot of the other Nazgul. But from what I could gather from my research, the Nazgul's power grows with their masters, so it's possible that he got stronger due to Sauron growing in power, or got powered up another way. It's also worth pointing out how hard it is for the Witch King to be killed. Saruman and Elrond failed to kill the Ringwraiths even though they were stronger, and Gandalf would similarly have a hard time finishing off the Witch King. The prophecy says he can't be killed by a man, though Gandalf being a Maia may exempt him from this. It's not exactly clear how the Witch King died either. From what I read, apparently it was because Merry stabbed him with a special dagger that broke his spell, allowing Eowyn to slay him, which would make sense considering the Ringwraiths have been stabbed by swords before and haven't been killed. On the other hand, Gandalf can be killed if stabbed, and with that his staff has been shown to be vulnerable to physically more powerful enemies. And the Witch King is extremely strong, being able to swing around a massive mace that can shatter shields with a single blow. It's also been shown that Gandalf can die from overexerting himself in long fights, so considering how the Witch King of Angmar destroyed his staff, which Gandalf needs to fight physically stronger enemies, which the Witch King is, and has limited stamina, overall, I have to give it to the Witch King of Angmar, at least going by the movies. The Calamity Tier houses characters strong enough to bring on calamity to the world. The stone giants are the biggest creatures we see on screen, and none of the characters in the tiers below really have a way to match their size. Maybe some of the characters in the Wizard tier can manage to kill one by blowing their head off, especially if it's the Witch King on his Fell Beast or Gandalf on a Great Eagle to give them aerial superiority. But if the stone giant sees them and is serious about killing them, they'll have a real tough time not getting crushed like a bug. Smaug isn't as big, but he can fly, which gives him a huge advantage. His fire is strong enough to blow apart buildings, his wings create huge gusts of wind, and moving his body around caused earthquakes that could be felt miles away in Lake Town. So I think he could manage taking down a stone giant. He would still need to be careful though, as even though his scales are like shields and impenetrable to most weapons, I don't think they would save him from a direct hit from a stone giant. Galadriel didn't get to show off her power much, but what she did show was insane. With a wave of her hand, she completely decimated an orc and created a huge shockwave that went on for miles. With that kind of power, I assume she can blast apart a stone giant or kill Smaug. There's also the fact that she drove off Sauron, who Gandalf stated was far more powerful than Smaug, before even knowing that it was Sauron himself. She also implied that she could basically be the next Sauron if Frodo gave her the ring, so this spot makes sense. Finally at the top of the list, just like he's at the top of his tower, in the S tier is Sauron at the height of his power with the One Ring. Even while not at full power, he was able to completely overpower Gandalf the Grey and destroy his staff. And like I said, Gandalf thought he was far more powerful than Smaug. With the ring, he's able to maintain his physical body and send groups of people flying with the shockwave from the swing of his mace. He may not have shown he could produce the same kind of large-scale destruction as Smaug, but when the ring was cut from his finger, a massive shockwave came from his body that knocked over the surrounding armies. And when the ring was finally destroyed and he died for good, an even stronger shockwave was created, and massive destruction to Mordor was caused. He's also pretty much unkillable unless you drop his ring into Mount Doom, so none of the characters on the list would be able to permanently kill him in battle unless they took his ring from him and took it all the way to Mordor and dropped it into the fiery pits of Mount Doom. Not to mention he's a necromancer who can summon the Nazgul to aid him if he so chooses. As the Lord of the Rings, I think Sauron deserves a spot at the top of this list. Do you agree this is the one tier list to rule them all? Or do you think I've fallen to Sauron's corruption and created something only someone who's gone mad from the ring could concoct? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe, as the Eye of Sauron is watching you.